let's move on. Is the exam grading the only problem of this lockdown? No, absolutely not. Look at how much teaching time has been lost. We're talking about GCSE and A-levels losing almost 2/3 of a school year in teaching. What does this mean for a year 10 or a year 10 student who was in year 10 until the end of the summer term and is now in year 11? And the year 10 student is now in year 11. The year 12 student is now in year 13, and both of those have very important exams in summer 2021. How are we going to deal with that? They have lost a lot of learning time on a 2-year course. So how can they possibly score top grades in the GCSE exam or their A-level exam at the end of this school year, summer 2021? And of course, what's more, let's just think about this one. We don't know whether some schools will have to close again for weeks or even for months between now and next summer. What's the latest news from the universities? In Newcastle University, Northumbria University, 700 students are now confined to their university residences, their university apartments, because of a COVID scare. Yeah. We have no idea what's going to happen next too. And one thing you'll find that they show is the huge difference in this country between private school education and state school education.
And even if they do online lessons, the so-called remote learning, some of the schools' remote learning is actually not online lessons.
Indeed, that's right. I'm going to ask you to be patient here, Faye,
sure, yeah.
because I do go into some detail on that a little later on.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you, Francis. So where do we get to? Dealing with exams during the pandemic. So these students will have lost 2 terms out of 6, 1/3 of their learning time for these very important exams. The UK government says it will make some small changes to those exams in 2021 summer. For example, in English literature, students will study a bit less poetry. Most courses and most exams will be unchanged. My subjects are business and economics. They will be completely unchanged. So an exam designed to examine everything students have learned during 2 full years of teaching, they won't have had 2 full years of teaching, but the questions will be just the same. I think personally they're going to have to change that. I think the government will have to change that in some way, probably by offering more optional questions or something. However, we're here to think about what we can do to help these students in these incredibly difficult times. Schools, of course, will do their best. And the 2 main methods the schools use are either live online teaching, what you were just asking about, Faye, using Zoom or Teams or something like that. And many UK private schools do that. There's a second method. I'm going to go through these in a moment, briefly. Many schools, especially state schools, have teachers prepare work, email that work to the student. The student then is supposed to do the work at home, email it back to the teacher, and the teacher is supposed to mark that work and write comments about it. Some statistics for you, Andy. You wanted to know proportions.
Yes.
The state school method, which is mostly sending work out and having students do it and send it back, is estimated to reach between 4% and 20% of all students. And while we're on statistics, another recent report has said that state school students are spending, on average, 2 hours a day with their schoolwork. 2 hours a day, instead of 6 hours learning. It depends, of course, on the area that they live in as well. I've had many reports of students doing the work that they've been asked to do, sending it back to their teacher, and that's the last they hear of it. No marks, no comments. And of course, let's not think about the teachers, let's think about the unfortunate student. What student is going to continue if that happens? So, what to do about this situation? Both these problems have answers. Let's first look at teaching when school is closed, online teaching. It's very difficult indeed. Private school teaching, and remember private schools are the ones who did most of the online teaching and will do most of the online teaching. It's estimated to reach about 75% of its students. We're talking about GCSE and A-level students, remember. Question, how well will they learn? Well, their teacher can't control them. We'd be talking about classes of 12 to 15. I have colleagues in state schools who I am sorry to say are teaching A-level classes with more than 30 students in them, which is frankly shocking. And this is at high quality state schools as well. So you need to know which school you're going to and how they do things. The exam boards, as I said, I know what the exam boards like, recommend no more than 12 students in an A-level class. So let's say we've got 12 students in an A-level class at a private school. How do you control them? How do you monitor their attention? How do you respond to an interested question, an interested student asking an interesting question? How do you hold a debate? How do you invite questions of all these 12 students? Now, if you have been on a Zoom platform, in a Zoom meeting, with more than 3 or 4 people, you will know how difficult it is. About the best you can do is press the button that says, hold my hand up. What do we do about it then? Well, we're professional tutors, aren't we? So we'd say, of course, find a tutor. But who's the right tutor? Is it just somebody, maybe a young university graduate who's done an economics degree, or somebody very experienced who has been teaching for some time? The right tutor cannot offer to replace the course at school. If the school is doing online courses, do you see, the tutor should be supporting the school in that, yes, not offering something completely different.
Right.
And a good tutor will work out how to do that. Will call the school, talk to the teachers, and find out how it is best to do that. And in 1 or 2 hours a week, online, a good tutor, a specialist who knows that one subject, just one subject, remember, we can work in parallel with the work being done in class, but also, because that tutor is working one-to-one with a student, or possibly up to 3 students, that tutor can add the interest, can answer the questions, can carry on a debate with the students on the subject.
And presumably help motivate and all those other aspects.
Absolutely,
of mentoring for
that's exactly right.
Education.
Motivation is so important, yeah.
When they lack of the school context, the motivation, inspiration is also sinking as well, I guess.
Absolutely, yes. It's the students find it so difficult.
Yeah.
Parents out there will know how difficult students find it. Yeah. I believe that there are some schools in China which are offering complete normal courses taught online.
Yeah.
So students will start at 9, it's 9:96 almost, isn't it? Start at 9 in the morning, do a full school day. But I've also heard the question, how much have these kids learned? How much have they actually learned? Very difficult. I've said one-to-one. Some tutors will take on small groups who can be controlled and interested. Our own limit is at GCSE and A-level is 3 or 4 students, I think, which of course greatly reduces the cost of the tuition. Younger years, and Fusion also offer tuition to younger years, are much easier to tutor in larger groups. We can even give full lessons online to quite large classes, so long as they are not about to take a difficult exam. Even these classes aren't easy. We need to know what we're doing, and I'm afraid many school teachers do not. Okay, what about the second method? Teaching when a school is closed. Method number 2, schools not teaching online. I've mentioned that some schools, many state schools especially, the teachers will prepare work, send it to the students are supposed to do the work, they send it back again. I've mentioned also, Andy and Faye were asking how much work state school students tend to do, and the research shows on average, about 2 hours a day. Well, that's a much bigger problem. And I didn't say they do 2 hours learning a day, I said they do 2 hours schoolwork a day. Let's be clear about that. How much do you learn from that? Right, what to do? I don't know, frankly. I did come up with one idea, which is something like homeschooling. Homeschooling, but working with the resources, that's the work, the books and so forth, that the teacher sends your student. So what do you have to do? You, the parent, you could learn about the subject. You could buy the textbooks. You could find resources online, teaching resources online. You become something like a teaching assistant, or TA, a home TA. Now, what's a teaching assistant, you ask? A teaching assistant in a state school is an underpaid and undervalued, unappreciated angel. Her or his job is to go to every single lesson with a child who needs help and help that child. Not just to do the work, but to help that child learn. A good teaching assistant will help the child learn. It's a very top job, and if you want to do it, you're going to have to give it an awful lot of time. The other option we just discussed just now is clearly consider private tutors to support the schoolwork.
Yeah, and that tutor cannot, just teaching curriculum is not sufficient during this pandemic time, isn't it? Also the overall all-rounded development and well-being.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Faye talks a lot about well-being. She's absolutely right. I've been talking mainly about the academic side of a child's life. Let us not forget the well-being.
Yeah.
Hugely important. No child will learn well if they're not motivated, well-fed. That's a problem we have in the UK too, believe it or not. Some schools lay on breakfast for their poorer students. Would you believe in this rich country?
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the tutors, they may be, private tutors, really like individual, coming out for some part-time work and get some 1 hour or 2 hours, income per week. And that often, do not have opportunity. Those tutors may have opportunity to look after children's well-being and all-round the development. It's really just 1 hour's work there.
Yeah.
So it's sensible to think about when you're looking for private tutor in this context. We are suggesting somebody have some, a team to back up, like a more organizational, systematic tuition.
Well, this is the gold standard you're talking about, Faye. This is absolutely top class. That is more than if I were tutoring by myself, that is more than I could offer.
Right.
If Fusion can offer that, it's wonderful.
Yeah, that's exactly what we are aiming to since the pandemic started.
Yeah.
We're trying to set up ourselves to be able to support. That's why our company called Education Support.
Yes, exactly. That's right. And I'm just a small part of that. I just do the academic stuff and get me good exam grades.
You're the expert.
In a part.
Great. I wonder if there's been any questions up to now, Faye. Perhaps I can just go with a couple of the ones I had from previously. We know there's been, in normal years, students get the opportunity to do resits. They haven't done quite so well in their exams. What's happening now with COVID impacted years? 11 and 13.
Can we go back to the end of this summer to 2020? Our Year 11 students, our Year 13 students, and Wendy somewhere, have not been able to take their exams. They've been given estimated grades, but they're not allowed to appeal those grades. What if those grades are lower than they think they should have earned? Back in March, that organisation said, that's okay, we will offer them the opportunity to retake those exams they could not take in the summer. And we will set up a complete new exam season for all subjects in November and December.
Right.
Now, I particularly know about this because I was offered and have accepted to be an examiner for one of the exam boards in assessing the work that is done in those exams. That was the original idea. How many students are going to take those up? I have come across a couple, very, very few. Now think about it. These students originally were offered a certain formulaic estimation of their grades, but no, that was changed. And we said earlier, if you remember, that the teachers' grades that they have now been given are generally much higher than they expected. We have had, if we relied on teachers' estimates alone, they're way up. They're something like 10 to 15% higher than last year. That's a lot. Right, if that's the case, why should a student want to resit an exam? There will be some who will ask to retake an exam, but we don't think very many.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think you're right. The uptake of resits wasn't really large at all.
Yeah.
How about somebody chose to resit, but the outcome is actually the result is lower than.
In that case, the universities and UCAS will take the higher of the two grades.
Right. Okay. Is that always the case, even outside of pandemic?
Not always. Not always. There are some universities who won't do that.
Oh.
It gets a bit tricky when you look at the detail.
Wow. Okay. So some most of the university might be interested in the most recent result.
That is correct, and that's why it becomes a problem. Absolutely right.
Right. So if you have, let's say, last year at the year 12, you tried to take economics for a year earlier,
Yeah.
A level, and you got a B, and you're not happy with it, and this year you try to go for the same A level exam again and get A, but you can't guarantee. In this case, no guarantee that you can take it as an A student.
No, absolutely not. We don't have time, but I could also go into what you do when you first receive a grade that you don't think is quite fair.
Right. Okay.
We can challenge that and
Yeah,
see if the examiner added up the numbers wrong. I haven't done that yet, thank God. If the exam board comes back and says, no, the numbers are correct, we can challenge that again.
Right.
And the second challenge goes to the chief examiner. I have had that. But we don't have time to discuss.
Yeah, but we can do that on a specialized consultation.
Sure, yeah.